Here we have Anthony Scaramucci, the Mooch, Nicole Wallace. Now, the topic here is why might Trump do the unthinkable? And what's the unthinkable? Actually using a nuclear armament to strike Iran. He wanted to do it in the first term. Everybody does not understand how simple-minded this man is and how he has no understanding of cause and effect, and therefore to deal in trade matters, to deal in anything geopolitically, he only has at best a one-dimensional viewpoint, and other than the latest cheeseburger, all that remains is what his dad programmed from childhood and what has kept him going in his business cycle, which was a wannabe Don. Wannabe Don. And his name is Don. Go figure. Let's listen to this here. We're going to opt in the, not at the beginning.
In which I worked. Sometimes the things that are most alarming happening behind the scenes are aired out publicly to kill them internally, because the best way to kill something inside is to have someone on the outside do it. And so one of the patterns that's very obvious to a former communicator is that something that is being debated and maybe viewed as intractable, or someone on the inside is like, I can't fucking believe we're having this conversation, is to leak it to someone on the outside and to know for sure that people that Trump still listens to in the media will kill it, is more effective than trying to prevail in a meeting. I don't even know where they have these meetings in Trump's orbit. The sit room seems to be taken over from managing the fallout from the Epstein files, but wherever they debate foreign policy, maybe it's at the tank at the Pentagon, that's where normal people debate foreign policy. Mm-hmm. Wherever those meetings are happening, sometimes you use a cutout like Marjorie Taylor Greene or some political ally to sunlight it. This is one of the things we used to say, and get people on the outside, inside the media ecosystem. He probably still listens to what you say, not me so much, but to try to get Tucker Carlson and Megyn Kelly losing their mind over Trump dropping a nuke. He catches wind of it, and then he'll go in and kill it, backing up the internal actors trying to.
Meanwhile, Tucker Carlson, even though he has led a life of a silver spoon-fed child, he really has no understanding of anything beyond the mega ecosystem and his American ideological way of thinking, where might is right. He makes comments. We're talking about Tucker Carlson. He was all for Trump till he found out that Trump's an idiot. And I'm speaking kindly of Trump when I make that statement. And then he backtracks, and then he has a meeting online with some Canadian female journalist that's part of Mega North. And all of a sudden he's vilifying Canada, that we need to attack Canada. You know, so I take Tucker Carlson and any opinion of Tucker Carlson with a grain of salt. I don't even give him a grain of salt. The guy's another idiot. And this is what we're dealing with in a time where we need pragmatism. People need to be pragmatic and grounded. Let's go back to the video here.
To kill it in an internal debate. So that's what it looks like to me from the outside. I really don't think that he will drop a nuke, because I hope that there's still someone around that would say the response would be, retaliatory.
Yeah, well, listen, but also it would make him a full-on war criminal. It would make the United States, effectively the government of the United States, have to have a trial at The Hague. It would have...
Sick.
Yeah, but here's the other thing that nobody's thinking about, and you got to kind of superimpose yourself into the cranial structure known as Donald Trump. And the fact of the matter, he wants to go down in history in the most monumental way possible. He thinks he's the greatest president in the world. So him hitting the button and launching a nuclear weapon is not far-fetched, folks. Not whatsoever. Let's be realistic.
Incalculable consequences for the United States, and many people now would put us in the rogues gallery of North Korea and Russia and China for these types of things. But But I guess my point about it coming up, she's hearing it, I believe, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe she's hearing it from somebody. I don't think she just goes out unilaterally and wakes up on a Sunday morning and says, let me make up some stuff about what I'm
No, I
hearing
agree with you.
in the White House, right? So you think that, okay? And so then the secondary thing is his state of mind. Okay, so I know from people inside the White House, he talked about nuking Iran and Trump won. General Mattis thought he was crazy. Rex Tillerson used words that were worse than that when they came out of the White House Situation Room discussing
Effing
it.
moron, right?
Right, exactly. And now he's talking about it again in Trump 2.
Yeah.
You don't think he wants to do it because of the consequences associated with it. But this is a weird guy. This is a guy that has this narcissistic compulsion towards power.
Yeah.
It's not impossible, right? You can't have it at a zero, right? You can't say this is a 0% chance that somebody like Donald Trump would use a nuclear weapon in a theater capacity somewhere. 0%?
Yeah, no, I wouldn't put anything at zero. It was my first point about the Strait of Hormuz. I don't think you can figure out how we get out of this until you know how it ends. So I wouldn't put anything at 0%. What I would say is that Trump always wants what he wants, right? That he's prosecuting Comey isn't really a Trump story. You know better than me. He wanted to do this in 2017.
No question.
It's a Todd Blanche story because Jeff Sessions doesn't allow him, Rod Rosenstein doesn't allow him, Bill Barr doesn't allow him, even Pam Bondi makes it difficult. It's a Todd Blanche story. So he may have mused about nuking people in the past. It becomes sort of a Mattis Tillerson story. Tillerson called him an effing moron. Mattis ultimately leaves for cause, but it's over something else, not his desire to drop a nuke. It's over his policy around the Syria-Turkey border were abandoning allies, Kurdish allies. But there were people around him with lines. I think we know Hegseth doesn't have a line, but we'll find out if Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Kane does. And so that's what I think the nuke story is. It isn't about Trump. He thinks these are his toys and he'll play with them if he wants. And it's not even that I think he won't do it because of consequences to innocence, because I doubt he's even seen Oppenheimer, right? It's too long, too complicated. He'd be like the person that stops it and has to ask, whoever, Natalie or whoever, what just happened? What just happened? So there's no way he has any understanding of the consequences.
Also, you got to remember, Trump has no moral compass. You obviously give him too much credit if you think he has a moral compass or a conscious understanding of cause and effect. Just based on his behaviors and actions up to this point in time. We are still in a linear time frame.
Consequences to humanity. But in terms of the consequences to himself, I don't think he would be scared away from something by being a war criminal. I think he would be scared away from doing something like that by someone who says no.
Interesting. Yeah, because by the way, when he is pushed back, he always relents. And when the courts push back on him,
correct,
he relents. When Tillis pushed back on him, he relented.
Correct.
And they got rid of the weaponization fund and all that other stuff. All right, Nicole, let's go back to Trump and South Korea. So yesterday, the president decides that his good friend, who I want to stipulate he's met with for a total of 5 hours in a...
Okay, so here we're going back. We're going back in time. But it's actually in the present time because nothing's really changed. The man-child in the past is the same man-child in the present. And this is what you really need to understand. We're dealing with a man-child president of the United States.
Diplomatic setting that his good friend, the North Korean dictator Kim Jong-un, put a propaganda video together of Trump bowing to him and subordinating himself to him. That's his good friend. And so as a result of his good friend and that relationship, he wants to slow down the joint exercises between the South Korean military and the American military, which we are obviously have always done for deterrence. We've always done for military preparedness, but also for deterrence. And before I let you speak, I want to add one little thing to the ointment here, one little fly to the ointment. The North Koreans have deployed 50,000 troops in Ukraine to support his good buddy, Vladimir Putin. So this is a rejection of 80 years of national security and State Department and Department of Defense strategy in Asia. And what say you?
I think it's an abomination. I think in normal times it's an impeachable offense. I think it reminds me of a couple things. When I worked for Sarah Palin and we were trying to prepare her for debates, as not as someone who didn't know enough, but as someone who was running on a ticket with John McCain. Foreign policy obviously meant a lot to John McCain, and we tried to explain what the six-party talks were in case she got a question about six-party talks. And she sort of, had obviously never thought much about North Korea. So we showed her the satellite image, North Korea, and she said, why is it dark? And we said, well, Kim Jong-un is, a murderous, repressive dictator. We showed her the growth charts, how much smaller North Koreans kids were than the kids in Korea. The brutality of the North Koreans has been obscured by the freakishness of Trump's obsession with Kim Jong-un. But he's brutal. He's shot and murdered family members. He's a hideous threat. You were probably in the White House when John Kelly, I think, felt like he was personally walking the line between Trump starting a war with North Korea and
fire and fury.
Correct.
I had just gotten fired. And then on August 3rd, Trump said that he was going to invict fire and fury on North Korea. And General Kelly was like, okay, this is absolutely crazy.
From the outside, and you correct.
And then we've gone from fire and fury and pounding the North Koreans to the North Korean leader being his best friend. Now, this is what you're dealing with a guy like Donald Trump. And this is what you have to remember.
Correct me if I have this totally off base. The love affair is sort of the best bad alternative to what was warmongering on Trump's part. And a lot of people around Trump, I think, were very worried he was going to start a war. I was working at the Today Show at the time. I remember going on every time they fired a missile. And I think that everything with Trump is like an overcorrection. So the love affair probably wasn't the intention. I also think I read somewhere that one of the things he took to Mar-a-Lago when he took classified material was his correspondence with Kim Jong-un. The obsession with Kim Jong-un and the personal affection he has for a murderer is a sign of something, again, that would be impeachable in normal times. And so I, in like the 10th year of covering the Trump story, try to step back and look at it, one, as the threat that it represents, and two, the indictment that it is of the party I was once a part of. I'm sure that none of them have gone to microphones and indicted the conduct. I'm sure that none of them have reached out to people in South Korea and said, hey, we'll make sure this doesn't happen. We'll make sure these happen. And I can't imagine that there is someone like Mark Milley who's brave enough to sort of stabilize our alliances when Trump is saying these things. So I think it's a really, really, really fraught and dangerous thing that he's done.
What people are missing from the story right now, which is something I follow because I'm in the business community, is the Ministry of Industry. Their effective Secretary of Commerce landed yesterday at Dulles Airport. His name is Kim Jong Kwon. And why did he land there? He's working on a trade deal and he's working on a potential tariff reduction. And there's a lot at stake, right? Because there's $350 billion of goods that flow between the two countries. Most of our televisions here in the United States are now produced in Korea, as are many of our washer machines, et cetera. And so I feel like Trump was dropping this bomb for a couple of different reasons. It had a few layers to it. Number one, Putin, you're my buddy. This guy's your buddy. I'm just signaling to you that we're buddy, 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 right? It's sort of like a menage a trois. How gross is that?
So gross. Especially the image of the three of them naked. Ugh.
Yeah, I had to just throw that in there just so people.
But here we go back to Putin, which was an issue during the first term of 2016, North Korea in the present, Venezuela, taking the leader of Venezuela out of Venezuela so that they can take over the oil industry in Venezuela, and thinking that he could bomb the crap out of Iran, steal their oil, and go down in history as the oil baron of the world. This is what a guy like Trump is thinking, and he he will use a nuclear weapon if he has enough enablers. And here is the other fact that nobody's taken into account. The fact that Sarah Palin, when she was running with John McCain, we can actually categorically place her as a genius compared to Donald Trump. And even Palin had to sit in on briefs and understand what's going on with North Korea. She has no understanding. So you have congressmen and leaders in the United States that have no understanding of what goes on outside their borders. They only go by what they get on television. And guess what? Real life is not the same as Hollywood, no matter how idyllic the scenes may be. Nonetheless, here we are in Canada, and we've got a political situation where conservatives are doing the might is right ideology. We've got Alberta trying to sell out to the United States because they think they're going to be further ahead. That's the furthest thing from the truth. But nonetheless, we have simple-minded politicians here in Canada because we have that in Alberta, we have that in Saskatchewan, and we have that in Ontario. And they try to usurp Supreme Court rulings because they can't get their own way. And if you really think a trade deal with the Americans is in our best interest, you are blind to the reality of things that are going on in the present. Because whatever deal we make with Trump in the present, if it's a bad deal, guess what? The next president's going to keep that bad deal, and you're locked in. So this is why it's so important that we do not just acquiesce to any deal for the sake of making a deal. Conservatives will say that's the way to go because it's Canada that's the problem. That's not the case. And the other reality is Greenland. This is where nobody's talking. American companies sent equipment to start drilling oil against the will of the Danish and the Greenlanders. And this is another way where the Americans, through Trump and his oligarchy setup, are abusing their positions in society to assert their will on others. And this is a very interesting situation in history. So nonetheless, it's time to wake up, folks. This conservative movement in Canada, no different than the American movement. Trump will use nuclear weapons if he gets a chance. He will hit that button. He will send a tactical nuclear weapon towards Iran. The Strait of Hormuz is a cluster muck of immense proportions because you have yet to see the effect economically on the world's population because of the gridlock of goods in the Strait of Hormuz. So there we are. Questions, comments, throw in the chat. Love and peace to y'all. Take care. Ciao for now.